This guy, this the blue dot is just to remind me where the pupil's gonna go. I don't have a devil on my shoulder. I have an anatomy instructor from 2002. Hey team, Rowan here. I want to talk to you about the anatomy of a fly. Now, a fly, that's a flying eye. You see flying eyeballs throughout everything, right? They're in heavy metal art, they're in Gravity Falls, they're in various video games, and I love them. And my flying eyeballs have a tail for balance, which is just the optic nerves and such. And I like the idea of fantasy creatures having some basis in reality, even if they really wouldn't work. Like, where are the other organs? There's no mouth here. How does this survive? They're demons. They don't have to eat. But I like the idea of having some sort of plausible deniability. You want it to be believable within your world when you make anything in terms of character design or monsters or the way trees grow in a fantasy setting. You want it to make sense enough. Internal logic matters. And so when I draw the flies, I try to keep in mind how a bat wing actually works. And bat wings actually look like elongated human hands on the inside, like they've got fingers. Obviously not separate fingers, but they can sort of grab things, and instead of feathers like a bird, you do have this membrane. It's a thin skin. And so I try to keep that in mind when I'm designing the wings of the flies. I want their wings to be bat wings. Or sometimes feathers, sometimes they have regular wings like a bird, sometimes they have, other stuff, butterfly wings, a butterfly, right? But in terms of the standard flying eyeball fly, I like to make them bat wings. And so I like to keep in mind how a bat wing actually operates, and how they might get ripped up. If I want it to be a little scarier looking, how much can I do to this wing until it no longer works? That matters too. And then the eyeball part is just a human eye. So it's round, and like I said, we have the optic nerves behind, which technically includes like arteries and veins and all that. I make mine very muscular in nature, but the eye itself, we have the cornea, which is there's a lens that goes over the pupil. There's also this other lens. The cornea is a sort of half an orb. Is a bubble that goes over the whole thing. And underneath it you have the pupil, which is going to dilate and shrink up if there's light versus not light. Now, the less light there is, the more it's going to dilate to try to get all the information in. The iris, the color of the eye, and sometimes I'll give them cat eyes instead, in which case your pupil is going to be, cat eye shaped, right? And that's going to dilate differently. It's going to go side to side. And if it's got a goat eye, that looks different, and octopus eye, and I do like to play with what kinds of eyes, but it's always an eye for a fly. And, technically, there's the retina and all that, but you're not seeing the inner parts here. We could. And there's not the, there's upper and lower muscles. I think they're called rectus muscles that sort of hold your eye in place in your head. We don't have to worry about that, because this is just the eyeball with wings attached. And I love the idea of showing you how they would be attached to this eyeball. I like the idea that there is sort of a skeletal structure on the inside. But again, that means this eyeball has to also be skull, has to also be sort of rib cage and back, and shoulder blade. There's no shoulders here. I tend to put the wings on the sides, sometimes a little higher. So there are implications there of how these creatures actually flap and move. But my point remains that there is an internal logic enough. I like that. And if I needed to truly explain these, if I needed to, defend myself, I would be able to. So my suggestion is always, when you are creating a creature, This is a creature that has existed since the dawn of edgy teens. But if you're going to make a creature in your fantasy setting, in your sci-fi setting, in your whatever setting, horror setting, most of it is horror, if you can keep in mind that internal logic, if you can base certain things, legs maybe, on animals that actually exist, mix and match things that actually exist, and then build upon that, you're going to have a stronger design. Because it's going to be based in some sense of reality, even if your actual story is not. And that's my spiel for today. Rock on!